Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Sharice Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. We are here today with Jennifer Gilgoric, and we are going to talk about business and being a mom and how to marry those two things together, which is the whole purpose of this podcast. So without further ado, my name is Sharice Walker, your host. And Jennifer, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Well, my name is Jennifer Gilgoric, and I am a certified coach. I mostly do consulting and crisis intervention for businesses. I've done it for over 20 years. I don't want to age myself too much. A long time. And yeah, I'm a mom and I am a mompreneur and I've owned businesses. I also work as the Minister of Equity and Resources for the world's first digital nation, the nation of Asgardia. We just put our national assets up on the moon. It was a huge endeavor, and that was back in March. And as a part of the national assets is my face, my bio, a story written by me, and all of my information. So it's interesting in my background, I have a great family, but when I became a teenager, like addiction and bad things came into my family. So if you saw them now, you'd probably think, oh, you had a silver spoon growing up, but that's not who they were during that period. And I ended up homeless. In fact, I went to college being homeless and I stayed in a shelter or out of the shelter. And so it's just, sometimes it's crazy. I think about, there were certain times like these little images come back from the days of not eating. And I experienced extreme poverty at that time in a way that most people will never do. I think about times I've looked up at the moon. I was like, boy, if that little girl would know that she's up at the moon now, it'd be a real trip.
Wow. You have so much I want to talk about, and I know we're not going to be able to get to all of it, but how did you make that transition from homeless to where you are today? Because first of all, you don't look like you've been coaching for 20 years. And
I'm 54.
are you really? I would
Mm-hmm.
have thought that. But coaching didn't really exist. They didn't talk about it 20 years ago.
Right. So it was, it was there, but what would happen is I would get clients. Well, I would either get hired into a job and I would end up developing a role. And it's crazy. So my mother, who's been now sober for almost 30 something, no, for 30 years now, she, the person I know is my mother now. And I give, for the grace of God, in AA, I have a mom that I love and I talk to a couple of times a week, but I didn't speak to her for almost 7 years. There was a period of time in my very young years, I had loving people all around me. And that saved me because it gave me a sense of self and that I was worthy. And I had a core, I had people, right? And she didn't get sick till a little bit later, like around my tweens. And then it became horrific abuse. So some people are like, how could you ever speak to someone like that? And I was like, the grace of God in AA and the fact that she did the work. So you can't forgive the unforgivable if they don't do the work. But there were years of hard work she did and bravery that I don't know if I'd have. Like, it's really difficult when you really screw the pooch as bad as an alcoholic and addict can screw the pooch, right? And mess things up and lie and do embarrassing, humiliating stuff, hurt people. And then to go back in those same rooms with the same people and say, I'm different, knowing that most of them, no matter what you did, you could save their life. And they'd turn around after you saved their life and go, you're still just a nasty drunk. I hate you. They'll never forgive. And she did it. And that is a strength of character that I did not appreciate until now. Now, getting to my age now, like in my late 40s and early 50s, am I really appreciating how hard that is? And it's given me a lot more grace for people who stumble and are trying to recover. Because there was a time that I'm like, I didn't drink. I didn't even have a drink until I was in my 30s and I discovered wine. That changed a lot of things for me. But I wouldn't even, because no, you're horrible people. I mean, there was just like in my head. And so to talk about like being, homeless and all that, she was a businesswoman, an incredible businesswoman. She owned for over 54 years. Oh, so for as long as I was alive, she ended up owning a staffing company. She had started out, she was the first person in our family, I have a massive family, to ever get a divorce. And she needed to. I mean, I love my dad, but he did not become non-abusive and not an alcoholic until he met the love of his life after my mom. So the guy I grew up with, because I was a baby when they divorced, was this great guy. But my brothers and sisters who are much older than they have a totally different story about him. But she did it. She did it against society and everything else, and she was very, very good at it. And so I worked at a very young age. Like after school, I'm like in 3rd grade, I'd go put my backpack up at her office. And then if somebody had a spelling test, I would give them the spelling test and I would grade it. I would put them on the typing test and then I would listen. I was in playing or doing my homework in the back of her office as people were interviewing. And growing up, there is a lot of self-worth in working. It's how people identify. So I just really need this job. I need it for my kids, my wife and blah, blah, blah. Cause she did everything from secretaries at oil plants. We live in a very industrial blue collar area. So she was putting a lot of people at the plants and then boilermakers and people like that. So I got exposed to hearing stories from lots of different people. And then certain things would happen and she would discuss it with me. Did you hear him say that? This is what's important. This is something you shouldn't do at a job. So when I became homeless, I had skills that most homeless kids would never have because of that. I knew how to interview, I knew how to fill out an application. I understood the process of that. It wasn't so daunting for me. I ended up getting jobs for people who were degree and wait. I had no idea. I did smart things. I didn't put that I was in a homeless shelter. I wrote the address out like it was an apartment. And then if I had a room or like a box, sometimes they only allow you a box to where you can get these different things. They didn't have email, so you would get mailed and stuff like that. And I would just put the number of the box like it was an apartment number, so they would know. So little things like that. I was smart, and then when I got jobs, I just sucked up all the opportunity of it. All those stories were embedded in me. And so then I made myself valuable by always looking and seeing in the business. I had a real good eye for what was working and what wasn't. And it just morphed into that.
That's so cool. That's such a great story. I love the stories of how things happen because
Mhm.
people think, well, I'm going through this trial like right now. I say every year, every 2 years, the bottom drops out for me, right? And so I'm like, "Oh my gosh, why am I here again? What?" And it's like, "What can I learn from this to make me stronger?" And that's the part that I think is fantastic with you is that it made you stronger and you looked at things instead of being a victim, you're like, "Okay, how can this improve and what can I do to be stronger and to be successful?" And so let's fast forward where you are today, where you've been coaching. What made you decide to go into coaching?
Well, I was really good at fixing things. I have a real good eye for systems and processes and when things break to get them fixed. And it was because of tragedies that I got different skills. So later on, I worked for a steel company in my 20s, and the son of the steel owner was there. And he was a really crazy, I would say he's a crazy boss. He would punch holes in the walls. He would rant and rave. And then so it's me and his son, so basically 2 kids. I didn't feel like a kid there. I'm an adult. Boy, it's totally not an adult. And then this huge steel shop, right? And he said, I've got to go get forgings in India. We'll be gone for a month. So, and if you do well, we'll give you a huge bonus, thousands of dollars, right? And so we put up a big sign in the shop of what we're going to do, and me and this kid figured it out. And then right before he left, he fired like payroll and 2 other people. So it really was just 2 of us. So I had to learn payroll. I had to learn ACPAC at that time, which is this old, old accounting software. And then I upgraded us to Peachtree, if anybody remembers what that was. And then the son was working with the forgings, and every civil carbon bit is worth hundreds of dollars. So you have to count all of those all the time because you should take 2 of them and that would be a week's pay, right? And you could go sell it to a thing. So I mean, just inventory management stuff like that. We broke all the records. And when that guy came back, he gave us business cards with new titles on them, and nobody got a raise, and nobody got a bonus. I immediately quit. Yeah, and so it was through that that made me go get some skills that I needed, and then my next role, I was able to leverage that, and I went into and I realized there's a good way to do things and a bad way to do things, and I just kind of had to rebrand myself, and then I kind of felt like I said, I fell into it, but it was always through something really horrible, and I don't know, there's a way you can find, and it's hard for people who are not naturally optimistic. I've always been like that, except for when I was homeless, I became very angry and bitter, and I literally hated everyone's guts. This shouldn't have happened to me. Why has this happened? I thought about my cousins who were all like went to Harvard and things like that and had these great lives. And it's just like I was abandoned. Like I was just pissed. And I got sick of myself. And I was because it was against my nature. So I don't know if someone doesn't have that, how you can get that positivity to move forward other than to know that you are loved, that everybody has a divine purpose. That's why I talk about ethical entrepreneurship the way I do, because it all stems with how to be an ethical entrepreneur really is so very basic. It's what is your divine purpose on this planet and what are you here to do? Because I only work with service based business owners. So if you're gonna be service based and you're just like, "I just need to make money to pay bills," because that's valid. I mean, we need money, right? We gotta live. Lord knows I know that. But if you're not tied to your work whatsoever in another way, then you might make money. I've met a lot of very rich, miserable freaking people, right? And if you're not tied to it, it's never gonna get you what you want. You have to figure that out, right? I'm a florist. Well, what's your real purpose and value? You need to have your purpose and the promise to your customers. And it needs to be centered with who you are. So let's say you say, well, I want to bring color to the world. Okay, great. Put that on your website, put that on your card, put that everywhere. And how are you going to do that? I'm going to help people bring color to the world and through the value of living art through flowers. And they'll also appreciate the environment more because I'm very tied to the planet. That would be your promise. That would be it. That would be how to transform everything. And if that can be the center, that's how you hire people. That's how you figure out what KPIs you're going to be tracking, your objectives and your key results. It all starts to stem from that. And that's when we could start using data for true purpose that isn't just blind numbers. Because I don't like blind numbers, but when they're tracked to real things, then all of a sudden it starts speaking to you in a different way and you can just transform.
You know what I love is that you just created the whole like what I've heard from so for the last 5 years from people where they say you have to figure out your why. You have to figure out your why and your purpose, basically. And then who is your ideal customer, who's your avatar, who's that person. But you put it in words that are unique that I have not heard before. That I really do love. For our listeners to say I bring color to the world if you're an artist, like my daughter is an artist, that totally resonates with me. And so it's like, what do you do? And how do you do it? And how are you, what's your unique proposition? How are you doing this? And so I love that you have created it, not using the typical buzzwords of today.
Yeah, because those don't mean anything. It really means that what are you really here for? And I work with a lot of doctors. And so they're like, well, I want to help people. Okay, that's great. But how are you going to help people? What's your person? And then, well, I really do really well with people who have sciatica. Okay, then let's just state that. Right? You're not, and because they're like, oh, I can help anybody. I can help you in knee pain, if they have neck pain, if they have that. It's all tied together. Let's say if they're chiropractors, right? But then if your jam is back pain, then you need to be talking about that all day long, right? Because there's tons and tons and tons of people, but there's a very specific people that you want to be your people, right? And that's just the easiest way to do it. And then you can tie it into what you do. And then if people ask you what you do or your staff, the last thing you want to say is, "Oh, I work at a chiro's office," or, "Oh, I work at a floral shop." That's the end of that conversation. But imagine if they say, "I bring color to the world," or, "I help people live longer and happier so they can move in ways that They can live their life on their terms, something like that. And I could make that better if I had more time. But that, and then the person's going to say, "Well, how do you do that?" Well, and that's your promise.
It's
So if you can make that change and start saying that out loud, words are powerful, and you'll notice a shift.
That is amazing. So when you say the ethical leadership, so you get them to their purpose, you get them to their why, they get them to like the whole point of their business. And then what's the next step? Do you work with
The next step is what numbers are we going to track, right? Because how are we going to grow this business? How are we going to find these people, grow this business, and know if we're on the right track? So typically, I mean, I've worked with tons of startups, but now I tend to work with businesses that at least established. You've got a couple of customers on your belt, if not more than a couple of customers, and you've hit a wall. So then we talk about, well, what are you tracking? What are your real KPIs, right? Your key performance indicators. What do you really want? So I take it back to what do you want? Well, I just want people to love us. Okay, that's great, right? How will you know when that happens?
Mm.
So, well, they'll tell me that. Okay, but where will they tell you that? Well, they'll give us a 5-star review. Okay, well, we could track that. How many did you get last month? How many are you going to get this month? What processes do you have to invite people to give you that? Well, let's just work on that. And that can be one of the first things you start. Well, they give me referrals. That's another way that people love you. Okay, well, let's track it. What did you do last month? What's our goal this month? Are we going to get one more or two more? Let's try. And what processes do we have to get a referral? That are legal and ethical and fair and fun, right? And let's put that in. And then once you have just a couple of those and you set it out for the team and you tie it back to the purpose, and then your promise, because they're there for money. It's a contractual relationship, right? You work so you have money so you can pay your bills and live. Well, then, they can think, well, maybe it's more than that. And they can get more on board. And it'll also help you self-select the people who are not on board and then attract people who are. When you work for that, then it is easier to be ethical in your other dealings. Because is this how I want to be working today? Is this the type of client I really want to work with? You get out of the, well, I have to
Mhm.
because it's money.
Yeah.
That's a terrible place to be. That's the worst type of prostitution, really, is when you're just, man, I just hate this person. They're icky and I feel bad, but I have to because they pay me. Nobody wants to be like that. And we don't want to serve people like that when we know that they'll just are going out and doing whatever.
Yeah. No, I love that. Because, I mean, we know people who are in business, they hate their industry, they hate their job, they hate what they do, but they make good money. So they just stay with it instead of going and doing something that they truly enjoy. And if you're like that, my listener, then let's talk about how to get out of that. But I want to go back to you have 4 core areas that you talk about in business that every business, in order to master and grow, you have to know. So, what are those 4 key or 4 core areas?
Yeah. First is lead generation. So how are you going to get your leads? Right? Like how is your market? It's all part of your marketing strategy. So lead generation, your lead conversion, your fulfillment, whether it's patients or clients, how you are fulfilling, and then what happens after that. So those are like 4 totally different areas that you need to have a client journey written out for.
I love
Right?
that.
And so you need to think about it. So and that client journey needs to be consistent with the values and what you're putting out so that it's a very cohesive process. But like if you are worried about getting no, we just don't have anyone calling. Well, then you're going to worry about the lead generation, that client journey until the sale. So it's client journey, client conversion. Those two is what you really need to focus on. If you're like, people just don't stay and they don't stay with us later. We don't get any referrals. Well, then it's the other two. And then you have the mindsets that you have to be in because you can't just be you can't just create a job for yourself, which is what most people do. I'm a real good artist, so I'm going to create this artist job where I'm the artist and everything has to come from me. Or I'm the doctor, or I'm the roofer or the plumber, whatever you're doing, right? You have to think of yourself not just the person who is in fulfillment, but pull yourself out and think as a CEO, how can I grow it? And then you pull yourself out again into the shareholder mindset. And those are 3 totally different ways to look at a business. And you're gonna have to be at least aware of them so you can actually grow. Because if you're stuck in the widgets without the CEO going, "Well, wait a minute, that's not actually the most effective time. I can't be spending time on admin duties or fulfillment because I need to be driving the business."
Mhm.
And then the shareholders thinking something else.
Amazing stuff that and it's very true, break it down even lower where you have different levels of each type of person that works in the business and how their perspective is and what they can do. So you are the type of person that I admire where you're not salesy, right? You just this is the way it is and this is
Mhm.
what needs to happen. So what's your recommendation to because service-based businesses have to be able to sell because they have to convince like you have 5 HVAC companies or if you have 100 HVAC companies, they need to be able to say this is why you're going to choose me without sounding salesy. So how and what do you recommend people do?
Well, the first thing that you absolutely have to do is to know your purpose and your promise. That needs to be the biggest thing. You need to be able to say that in your sleep, right? You know, I back when I wrote a dinosaur, I was in the pharmaceutical realm, and people would ask me, "Well, what do you do?" "I sell air." "Well, what does that mean? How do you do that?" Well, we were the only provider in, like, Oklahoma and North Texas of liquid oxygen. So, if you're a doctor, you'll never have a patient die with us because the concentrator costs too much money, they won't run it. It gets clogged with dog hair or dust, and they can't get its cleanings because 'cause they're too rural, or they have a issue with their lights coming on and off because of, various things. Or they need to be able to walk around. Liquid O2 is portable, it's also the highest concentration. So, I sell air that keeps people alive. "Oh, well, that's interesting." Like, then it's a conversation and I would have to do that very quickly because I would have gatekeepers that were, "Where's my donuts?" All the at the front desk. They're all like, "Where's my donuts? Where's my free stuff?" I mean, it used to be when I did it, cutthroat on you had to pay off a bunch of people, and I wasn't allowed to pay off anyone. So I just literally was being held back trying to get the doctor some information so he could save his patients' lives, which is crazy how it used to be. Um, but for anyone, if you're a roofer, think about what your purpose is, why you decided to do roofing. Well, let's just say you're really good at it, but what does being a roofer do for you? Well, I make people safe so families feel safe in storms. Okay. Well, let's talk about that. Let's really come up with a statement of how you do it safely, right? If that is the thing that really gets to you, then let's put those things out there more, It's tornado season, feel more safe, even though not you have to go to a shelter and everything else, we have safer roofs, or in rainstorms or whatever. I mean, there's a lot of things you'd have to, you can't act of God is gonna take the whole house, right? But in general, you can do that, and when you think about that patient journey, well, I work with a lot of patients right now, so I'm gonna say patient a lot, but I mean, with a lot of doctors, but for clients, just regular clients, you think about the journey that they have from when they walk in, what type of experience you want them to have. Are you gonna greet them? How is that greeting gonna be like? Are there any extras that are gonna bump up that experience to where they're like, "Wow, you're different than the other place." What type of software or AI are you using, because I use a lot of AI in what I do now, and there's a lot of automated ways that you can reach out to people instantly and kindly that isn't just hitting them over the head. People are sick of that. What type of content are you putting out for your advertising? So it's developing that journey so by the time that they come in, they're already prepped. And then your sales pitch, what you're actually pitching them is more of just asking them questions. So why are you here? Why now? Why this office? What's your biggest issue that's going on right now? How is that issue affecting you? "Oh, so it's been leaking. Oh, and you're worried about mold. You're worried." I mean, they're going to give you all this stuff of what they're worried about. And then instead of just battering on them over the head with a sales pitch, you can just go through the main areas that hit that in whatever process you've developed that's going to get them to the end result that they want.
I love that. And I think we have to be careful too, because I've had a few salespeople come to my house lately, and I'll entertain them because I am right. And as we talk, They're just like, "Oh, you have this problem? Well, here's our solution, and here's the price." And I don't know how it works. I don't know how effective it is. I don't know. So you're wanting me to pay thousands of dollars for something that I don't know anything about your product. And so I love that you're asking questions because you're seeing, are you a good fit? And if you are a good fit, now let's educate you on why. And
Yes.
that's amazing.
And you're doing it without making the person exhausted, because some people, they don't wanna care, they just want them to fix it, and is there, like, a warranty and, like, the basic things, right? So, you cannot be having a pitch that's 30 minutes long. I mean, people are not gonna sit for that, right? They are gonna talk about themselves for as long as they can, usually, right? And the longer you make them talk, the more tired they're gonna get. 'Cause that's emotionally draining for people, and most times to have to be answering a lot of questions. So you do need to develop and this is what I help people with, develop the questioning process to where you hit at what's important to them as quickly as possible, and that you are as confident in what you offer that you can easily get back to them why that is, if it is. And if it isn't, you need to be able to say to them, "You know what? I don't think this is a fit because of this or this." And then go, because sales is a numbers game. But make it a good experience for them. But if you change your mind on this or this is what we can offer, and this is about how much it is, and I really appreciate your time. That is a positive experience, right? They would probably say, I did get a guy who came in, we weren't a fit, but it would be a good fit for you, Jane. That's a referral in the making.
Yeah.
So, as long as you look at those conversations as what is the synergy with them, and to leave it not you just going, "God, I lost that sale," just trying to shove a round peg in a square hole or whatever, then it's a very different feeling. It doesn't feel salesy, it doesn't feel draining. You're just having great conversations with people.
Yeah. And getting to know them and not being, well, you have to act now, right now, before I leave. So,
No, I mean, there is a one-time close. You do want people to I would so to let people know, go, "Now if you do it now, because I don't have to come back, it'll save me money, this is the discount." But I understand some people wanna be able to look, this is what it would be. And just be honest about stuff like that, because it does cost money to keep on coming out, especially if you're physically coming out, or to be doing multiple appointments, because that's somebody else new that can't get on your roster. And most people, if you just explain it like that, they're aware and they go, "Okay," and then it's either worth it or not. You just don't have to be very pushy about that.
no, no, with educating, they're either going to want it or not. It's called the table rush. If you've done your job explaining your value, they should want it right away. That's the table rush.
Yeah, and if they have some people, well, we work on the envelope system, my husband and I, and this is over the envelope I'm allowed to approve, right? With it, I have to get him, and we know this, and we know that we might miss out on a deal, but that's okay. Just say, "That's absolutely okay. You talk to him, and when do you want me to call back to you? When do just I mean, it's just as long as you're cool with people, yeah, you just have to be cool with them rather than salesy, and it just works out a lot better. But you still have to ask for it. You still have to ask for the sale. You can't just leave it all up to chance, and you do have to do your follow-ups, but the follow-ups can be nice.
Love that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're out of time. So I have to ask this question. We didn't really get to the motherhood part yet, but being a mom and a business owner can be difficult at times. And sometimes making sure that my goal right now is, since my girls started back at school, is to make sure I'm home when they come home from school, where I don't want them coming home to, I don't want them to be a latchkey kid. And that could be their older kids, siblings are still around, but they're not paying attention to them. Right. So that's like this goal that I have. And I'm working hard to make sure that I'm there. But it's tough, especially because a lot of times, like 3:30, I don't know what it is, but my phone starts blowing up, which just happens to be the time school gets out. So how do you juggle the mom and the entrepreneur side of things?
I am a really big stickler for my schedule, even in my personal life. So on my calendar, I have everything scheduled out, but I also set boundaries with the people that I love, because the worst breakers are the people close to you, or if you work at an office, other staff, other people, partners, things like that, that really will take advantage. And so if you're like, "I absolutely won't do that now, this is important to me." Well, you're just eating right now. Can't you just talk to me? Or you're just doing this meditation. I'll put it on there. And I gotta do it, right? And, I'm pretty much a stickler to it, and I was like, "No, because when I'm with you, I wanna focus on you, so I just won't do it." And after I don't do it enough or I'm like, "No," I mean, utilize no, and this is really hard because 'cause we're moms. I don't know what it is. As soon as you pop them out, it's like, "Oh, yes, yes, yes," right? And then they just get yes, and then before you know it, you're so overwhelmed. You've done all the shopping for everyone. No one else has to think in your household. You've taken over all the emotional and thinking labor for everyone. You don't have to. That actually is optional. You can actually just say no and train the other people. No, this is training for you. And they can just be happy in the same pants they're mad in or whatever. And so that's what I would say. And that is easier said than done. And you just got to start, and you just have to keep your foot down on that. I don't know what else to say.
No, that's good. Okay, what advice would you give a new mom? Let's say that you're sitting on a park bench and you're just a 9 month pregnant, first time mom comes and sits next to you. So now, and I don't know how old your kids are, but you have this gamut of remembering that first time when
Mm.
you had your babies. And so, what advice would you give a new mom? And it doesn't have to be just like as a new mom, it can be any time as a mom.
Well, I'm always the type of person when I see new moms because I have 2 daughters that are in their 30s. I'm actually a grandma now, and then I have a son who's 19 who just went to college,
Mhm.
which I'm totally unhappy about that.
You're
Actually,
19.
really not so happy. I mean, I'm excited for him. He's got aerospace engineering, he got a full scholarship. Like, we did all the right thing. He was just my sweetheart. But because my other daughters were in such a bad time of my life, I have very weird perspectives about everything. So, what I tell young moms is this is the best thing that's ever happened. Don't listen to anyone else. Whatever happens, it's going to be wonderful. And just try to get your sleep and still be kind to yourself. That's what I tell them. And but you're going to love it, and it's going to be fun, and it's going to be the most amazing thing ever because they get a lot of negativity. Social media is so against. They're either you got to be a trad wife, stay at home, blah, blah, blah. Are you ruining your kids, right? Or motherhood is garbage. Why would you ever do it? It's terrible. Don't ever have kids. I mean, it is just insane that you only get these extremist views of this. There's no happy, okay medium. You're either terrified you're going to die, right? Or, you're going to do it wrong because you're not handpicking berries from a farm that you created um, in your completely organic outfit, right? Like, I mean, it's just like nuts. So I'm just like, chill and just enjoy this life. It's just chill out, right?
I
And enjoy it.
I laugh because literally I had a conversation with someone yesterday about how they're gonna buy this ranch and they're gonna create this whole ranch of like hundreds of acres and it's like this whole system, which sounds pretty cool. But it's like this has been her goal as a mother is to be on this ranch,
Mhm.
build these things. So the fact that you used that analogy was great. Good time.
'Cause it's crazy. I mean, it isn't crazy. That's great if you have the time and effort, like ballerina farms, that's awesome. But her husband is the JetBlue heir,
Mhm.
right? And also too, now there's a lot of backlash because she just wanted to go to Greece, right? It's not like they can't afford to go to Greece. And he gave her an egg apron for her birthday, a tool to use. And everybody was like, and you saw like the light go out of her eye. It was really pretty sad. And then she says, "No, I really wanted that egg apron," and blah, 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 blah. And you're like, okay, it's just weird, right? But God bless anybody. That's not my life. I can't say anything, but they do put it out there. So I couldn't help but notice it because you put it out there and you didn't edit it. It was there, you know. So, but you get all this stuff and you just have to, I don't know, just it's gonna be fine. It's gonna be okay. People had kids in caves and most of them survived. Well, enough survived that you're here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So if our listeners wanted to contact you, how would they do that?
You would go to the website. I have a podcast too where I talk about all this stuff, but it's mostly for clinic owners. It's called superclinicproject.com. And if you click on my face, you can get a free 15 minutes with me. So if you showed up and you said, "This is my biggest challenge right now, no matter what it is, I'm really good at this too." Within 15 minutes, I'll give you about $10,000 worth of value. I'm not even kidding. This is my superpower. So superclinicproject.com. And then if you want to see other things I do with other service-based owners, you go to terraarcglobal.com.
Well, Jennifer, thank you so much for being on. And
I'm
really
glad.
quickly, how do you get your leads mostly?
Most of my leads come from Facebook advertising and organic, people that know me and my podcast. The podcast is really pretty good for that. The podcast and being on other people's podcasts, but Facebook, we have a mix of Facebook, Instagram, Google, and then a lot of referrals too. So yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Well, thank you for being on. Unbreakable Moms, she gave so many golden nuggets that I hope that you go back and listen to this again, because the core values of a company, knowing your purpose, knowing your why, knowing what your message is and how you are unique to you and stand out from the crowd. Contact her. You get 15 minutes and it's 10,000, probably more than that actually. But for now, go out and make it a great day. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Sharice Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Sharice Walker.